Your last answer was so hot that Instagram couldn't handle it.
We are stuck waiting for approvals on projects. I have 5,000 units waiting in the pipeline to get launched and approved.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting for our experts to join in into this session. You can, in the meanwhile, send in us your questions in the live feed as our experts um, take their time, a couple of more minutes to join in. Hi, good afternoon, Manisha.
Hi Akash, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for joining us for the fifth session of Ask Rohit Gera. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes for Mr. Gera to join. In the meanwhile, I would request everybody else to start sending in their questions for our experts. They'll soon start taking up your questions.
I can already see quite a few coming in and hope we can keep a trace of all of them. Otherwise, I request Akash, you and your team can keep sending those to me by email so I don't miss any of them.
Yes, just allow me a couple of minutes. I'm just waiting for Mr. Gera to join in.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Manisha. Welcoming everyone for the fifth session of Ask Rohit Gera. We'll just wait for a minute or two for the audience to build up, and then we'll start off with our session.
Sure. How are you doing, Manisha?
I'm fine. How are you, Rohit? How's Pune?
Very good.
When do you open the lockdown?
They're talking about a graded opening up. So I think what we're hearing so far is that they'll start loosening up things over the weekend.
Okay.
For the weekends. But in terms of offices and in terms of other things, I don't think they've taken any decisions as yet.
All right, let's see. We'll get the news by tomorrow.
Yeah, fortunately, the numbers are down. Certainly in Pune, Mumbai, the numbers are down. In other parts of Maharashtra, it's still concerning. So, so my sense is that they'll probably keep the lockdown technically on, but they'll start easing up then cities and towns where things are not as bad as others. But, I think we do need to have a sort of tight, some amount of tightness as far as the overall
Correct.
places are
Control
concerned.
over people starting to move again as if it's normal. Okay, Akash, should we start now?
Yes, I think we are good to start. So just a brief introduction to everyone who's live with us right now. So first of all, welcome and thank you everyone for this session of Ask Rohit Gera. This is Mr. Rohit Gera's initiative to steer home buyers in India in the right direction and address any questions, queries they may have so that they make an informed decision. The second COVID wave, especially, and the consequent lockdown has left many of us wondering on what the impact could be on the real estate industry. With the pandemic disrupting the normal as we know it for more than a year now, what would be the impact on prices, sales, and possessions? All of that would be discussed in this live event. Most importantly, we are happy to welcome Manisha Natarajan, who will be moderating today's session. Manisha is India's one of leading editorial voices on real estate and urban development. She currently is associated with the Property Show and on NDTV 24/7. And as you all know, expert for today, Mr. Rohit Gera, Managing Director of Gera Developments, is an industry leader reputed for his unflinching honesty on micro and macro issues. So that's a little brief introduction of today's panel. Over to you, Mr. Gera and Miss Manisha Natarajan. You can start off with the session now.
All right, Akash, thank you so much. You've actually laid the base very well, summed up the questions I have on my mind. So, Rohit, I'm going to start with asking you, this time the pandemic definitely has been much more vicious, very personal for many people, and people are far more scared to even step out again, even if the lockdowns do get over. What do you think that is going to be, the impact of that is going to be on Pune's real estate market?
So Manisha, I think you've hit it on the head. This time around, things are very different, right? The last time around, the big fear was around jobs. Will I lose my job? Will I have my job? Will there be layoffs? And this time around, the fear is more around lives. So from livelihoods, the problem has become around lives, right? And we've all know of friends, family who have passed away and passed on as a result of this wave of the epidemic. So I think this time it's very real and very personal and very close to people, which is why everybody is taking this lockdown that much more seriously themselves. My sense. Sorry, go ahead.
So what I wanted to understand was then what happens? Do the buyers come back again? Because, from the January to March period, Rohit, we actually saw sales returning to not only pre-COVID levels, but in some cities beyond the pre-COVID levels, higher, because people have realized the value of a home and everyone wants one extra room and a little bit of extra space.
So Manisha, nothing has changed in terms of that realization for people, right? And there are points in time where people, so the need for housing continues unabated. In fact, people's needs have actually gone up and they've realized the need for the extra room. What happened between Jan, Feb, March is that the need had translated into demand, and you have a what I believe is a temporary event, which puts that demand, switches the demand off and makes it back to need again. Okay, right. So I believe it's a matter of time before the demand comes back, because people have realized the need for a home. The question is, when does that bounce back? Right. And also, but I think that there are other repercussions and impacts which really impact home buyers today, which is what I think is important to talk about. But I believe that, we'll see in the next 4 to 6 weeks, there'll be a tremendous bounce back in terms of sales coming back, because people have realized the need for homes. The other, whether it's interest rates being at an all-time low, the job security, those concerns are now behind us.
Okay.
So I expect, another few weeks' time, we'll see things bounce back. But there are other sort of headwinds and other sort of dark clouds as far as home buyers are concerned.
All right, we'll come to those a little bit later. Just give me a sense of what's happening at project sites right now, because last year when we had the pandemic, RERA actually gave developers 6 months of extension. In some states, they actually got a 1-year extension. So have you felt this? I mean, have construction workers gone back? Are projects going to be delayed? Existing home buyers, what should they expect?
So yes, absolutely. The construction, the workforce on projects has definitely gone down. And here's the other part of the problem, right? Our real estate projects typically have multiple activities ongoing at the same time, right? And workers who come to work for these activities come from different parts of the country. Now, if you have an exodus in one segment of workers, so let's say masons, for example, right? Now, you may have people, if you can't do the brickwork, right? The plaster guys are of no use. The tiling guys are of no use. The plumbing people are of no use, right?
Sequential. The work is sequential.
So the work is sequential and, and in fact, even concurrent in many cases. And therefore, even if we say there's 40-50% reduction in the workforce, the multiplier effect of that is substantial. We are currently facing that. We've seen that happen from April onward, right? So far, we haven't had any of the RERA authorities come out and give an extension. But the fact of the matter is, this is a pandemic situation. This is a force majeure situation, right? And as a result, I think just as the RERA authorities took a proactive stand the last time, this time they may turn around and say, okay, it's only 3 months, right? But I think that this will, as soon as they know that, yes, we know that there's light at the end of the tunnel and they can quantify how much of an extension they should give. Because, I think some people gave a 1-year extension. I don't think a 1-year extension was really warranted for last year, right? I think 6 months was fair. So I think as long as the RERA authorities come out proactively, even once things are clear, and we know that, yes, construction sites are back running on a full throttle basis. But to answer your question very squarely, yes, there is a slight slowdown. There is a slowdown in terms of construction activity, and this will lead to, in many cases, it can lead to a delay in terms of handing over of possession.
Okay.
We, like in our projects, for example, we are looking at ways to then mitigate. How do we compensate the contractors to bring additional people? Can we extend the shift? Can we have a double shift? How do we catch up? Right.
Okay.
But we'll all try to crunch the loss of time. But
So,
I think it's
fair to expect that there will be delays. Sorry, I'm
Yes.
butting in because
No,
I have
that's
a
totally
question from Rohan Kamath, who says that I have a Gera's River of Joy. I'm a Gera's River of Joy customer, and we booked a row house. Before ERA dates, and you'll try and fast track it once
always.
the lockdowns get over and bring in more workers.
Absolutely.
That's good to know.
Manisha, let me just point out something here, right, to all our customers and the people who are watching. The moment a project for a developer crosses a certain threshold of sales of, let's say, 70, 65, 70 or 80%, the developer is in a positive cash flow situation. Right? So once you're in a positive cash flow situation, and our projects are upward of 90%. So the faster we finish, the faster we make our profit as well. So we are not in we have no incentive to delay by even a day. And this is therefore, I'm saying this not so much as a Gera point of view, but if customers realize that their developers where they're buying have adequate sales, it's an additional level of comfort for them that the developers incentivized to finish the project faster.
Right. All right. So I have another question on that same note. Lokesh Dadani says, what will be the effect on NPAs of the real estate sector? It's a macro question, but do you think that this time it's going to hit the developers harder?
So I think the first lockdown, so all the previous issues that we faced certainly brought a lot of developers to the brink. Then we had the first sort of wave. Fortunately, the government and the RBI came up with giving moratoriums to people. Now, interest payments the interest kept mounting up. And so far, we haven't heard of any moratoriums this time around. So there's no revenue coming in because a lot of construction is slowed down. There's no new sales.
Right.
So yes, I do believe that this will impact a lot of the people who were sort of just about managing to keep their heads above water and got through the last sort of wave. Here you have another massive wave coming your way, and I do believe, unfortunately, that some people will be engulfed in this next wave.
Oh, good Lord. Well, I mean, the industry was already under a lot of stress. It's just the branded developers have captured a large share of the market because obviously they don't have as much of a problem raising capital as the lower rung developers have. So the market is already getting, shifted between good, credible branded developers versus the rest who seem to be struggling a lot more. Let's take this question from Pravjal Sunkarwar. She says that before COVID, we generally saw a trend of small houses with high amenities, but now everyone wants a spacious home. What are you going to do with inventory of small homes? So it's also an industry question. I mean, no one wants a 2-bedroom home anymore, Rohit, that's the bottom line. Everyone wants a 3-bedroom home, and now developers are actually saying that in a market like Mumbai, they don't even have inventory of larger homes.
Yeah. So this is, so real estate is highly cyclical and it's a very slow cycle sort of business, right? And these demands, ebbs and flows happen in, over long periods of time. So this is absolutely true. But here's one important fact. I may want a 3-bedroom home. Everybody wants to max out what they're buying, right? Whenever they buy. We have found that, a person will borrow from friends, family, and, put whatever he can together. Then he'll go to the housing finance institution. They'll tell him what the max loan he can get, and then he'll look for his home, right? There's no change in disposable income.
Right.
There's only a change in dreams and desires and aspirations. It has to be backed up with your checkbook. Right?
But Rohit, I have a point there. People are not spending anywhere else. People have stopped spending on travel. People have stopped going out and eating. So there's so much money going into the stock market. There are 3 lakh new Demat accounts open. What's to say that people don't have the purchasing power now, at least from all the spends that they were doing earlier? They can probably now pull in that for an extra home.
So what that does, Manisha, is that gives a person additional money from a down payment point of view. Most people are buying homes with a mortgage, right? With a home loan. There's 2 components to that. One is your own contribution, and the other is what you pay to service the loan with the bank.
Right.
So yes, because you've spent less and you saved more, your money available for you for your down payment has gone up.
Right.
But ultimately, you have to be able to support your monthly EMI and service your EMI with your salary. Right? And that hasn't gone up that much. Yes, there is a positive impact that the interest rates have come down and we're at all-time lows as far as interest rates are concerned. So there is certainly an increase in affordability there. But, that may take you up by 5 or 10%. So if you get a compact home of, let's say, 1,000 square feet, you may look at a 1,100 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. Right? But to say, yes, I was looking at an 800 square foot home and today I'm going for a 1,200 square foot 3-bedroom. We're not seeing a 50% increase in affordability.
But I think what you might be seeing, Rohit, is an upgrade. A lot of people who were quite comfortable with their 3-bedroom homes did have the purchasing power, but didn't want to shift. They said, okay, how much time do we spend at home? But now, A, they are spending so much time at home. B, they probably have brought in their elderly parents and relatives to keep them safe along with them because it's becoming difficult to go and meet them and take care of them. So suddenly the need for upgrading has become much higher, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely right. And that's a very, very valid point, Manisha. And therefore, we will certainly find the new projects being launched by developers will have the larger homes. There's no question about it. Right. But I don't see, therefore, that as, to the earlier point, that will cause an oversupply of the smaller size because the person who was affording a 600 square foot home will then opt for the 750 square foot home, right? So that cascade effect will happen and developers will definitely come up with slightly larger size homes to cater for this newfound desire to have more elbow room within the home.
All right. So let me ask you another very interesting question. We talked about the projects getting delayed and, we must be prepared for that. But what about inventory in the market? I mean, look, in 4 to 6 weeks, people will step out again and there will be a return of demand. Globally, housing demand has hit the roof. And I'm sure in India, we'll see a similar trend of demand returning quite strongly after the lockdown. If not hitting the roof, you're still not at that stage. What happens to prices now? Because inventory is going down, your construction, new inventory is getting slower, new projects are getting slower. In Pune market, your own report says that inventory is actually shrinking. So what happens to prices? Your commodity cycle is turning, which means steel has got more expensive, cement has got more expensive. But do you have any elbow room to increase prices or are they going to stay same for some time? There's no worry on that front.
I think prices have already started inching up like we saw in our last report. In fact, even if we look at micro markets and, we track a number of micro markets on a monthly basis, right? So we have certainly already seen prices starting to rise. And this is, where the moment, look, you set up the question yourself, right? The moment there is demand, the supply has gone down, right? Leave everything else aside. The moment there's more demand than supply, right? You're going to see a price rise. Now you've got a further situation that developers are forced to raise prices because the input costs have also gone up, right? So I think all things to us are pointing to an increase in prices. I personally don't think that we're going to see, runaway price hikes. But I think that from a consumer point of view, this is by far the best time to buy. Because, interest rates are at all-time lows. Pricing is, has been flat to negative for the last 4 or 5 years. Prices have been flat to negative. And if we start seeing the cycle turn, right, then this is really the best time to be looking at buying.
Absolutely. But, in India, there's still a huge mismatch. If I look at a global market, for example, in a UK today, your cost of capital is 2%, your rental yield is 4%, right? And in the United States of America, your mortgage rates are 2 to 3%, your rental yield is 3 to 5%. In India, we have a completely different scenario. We have mortgage rates at 6.5%, 7%, and you actually have rental yields at 2.5%, 3%. So would you agree that for that's one of the big reasons why a lot of price appreciation is probably not good for the market? You maybe increase a little bit, but really if you increase too much, you're outpricing yourself from the affordability factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we saw affordability went up, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, to 5.8 times annual salary. Today it's at 3.4 times, right? Because it's at 3.4 times, there is a demand, right?
Right.
We can afford to buy homes. Now, therefore, I completely agree. I think volatility in the real estate prices is really bad for the industry. It's bad for the sector, right? If we have, a steady appreciation of 6, 7, 8%, okay, you make another 2.5% on rental on top of that, your mortgage is at 6%, it's totally fine, right? It's perfect. What's happened in India is because of these big demand supply sort of mismatches, we go through this up and down and up and down. In the long term, yes, you have that 6 to 8%, year-on-year appreciation from a long-term point of view. But I do agree with you. I do hope that when it changes, right, our increases are largely inflation plus 100, 200 bips linked to it, right? And then you'll end up with your appreciation in real estate as being a little bit above your mortgage rates. Then life is much steadier. And what that also does, right? When you have these runaway price hikes, then everybody says, oh, real estate is so great. Let's jump into real estate. Let's become a developer. Don't have the capital, don't have the ability to actually develop a project. But because consumers are buying like crazy, you make some sales and then sales suddenly stop and then the projects get stuck. So it's just bad overall to have runaway price hikes.
Well, they're not consumers, they're investors. So we're glad. Right now, there is no... So another question, I did a show recently and used that little bite of Ruchir Sharma, who actually said that, now could be the return of the real estate cycle in India because housing prices have been flat for almost a decade now. But I don't want this market to turn into an investor market. And we should all be happy if investors are not coming back. And cash does not come back into the market, isn't it?
I think some amount of investors coming in is healthy, right? Because I do think that, everybody apart from their own home, right, should have some amount of real estate in their overall portfolio.
Okay.
Right?
And where should that be then?
I'm sorry?
Where should it be then? I mean, if you are saying that have a home to live in, that would be in the city that you work, and probably some real estate to invest in, where should it be?
So it could be in the same city where you work, or it could be in your hometown, for example, right? Now that, see, once you've paid for your first home, real estate as an asset is the only asset, unlike any stock or, in any mutual fund or gold or anything like that, where you can buy today and you can get a 20. Believe that people should have a home and don't treat that as an investment. That's your home, right? And you should have another property, which over time, as you pay for it and the rent starts kicking in, it gets built. Your first year, 2 years of rent will be 4% of capital value because you bought it at a lower price point. And eventually, maybe even 8, 9 years later, right, your rents are now equal to your EMI. So you've really serviced this for 8, 9, 10 years. The next 10 years, it pays for itself. And then eventually you own this asset. Now you want to sell it for, kids' education, or you want to sell it to get capital for your retirement, or there's rental income coming in. right? So I do believe that people must have a home and real estate as an investment. So I don't.
Okay.
We're back.
I think, yes, we're back, Rohit, and I think your last answer was so hot that Instagram couldn't handle it.
I don't know about that. I'm glad you made a light comment, because poor Akash was getting all stressed out about this. I told him, chill, take it easy. This
It's
happens.
technology, you can't fight it. It's
You can't
okay,
fight it,
just have
exactly.
fun. Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. You know, so we were talking about how much delay will be required, or would developers like you need
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of from RERA, let's say, sorry.
Yeah.
I should have structured that better. So quickly, if you can conclude that, because I do
Yeah.
have a couple of more questions
So
that
I
have come
think-
in from the viewers.
So I was saying, the work stop literally is like 2.5 months. And I think we probably need 2.5, 3 months. So I think all told, probably a 4-month extension for this time around, because, people have gone back to their villages. Now we have to mobilize them to all come back again and, jumpstart stuff again. So I think,
Rohit, will you be able to bring them back is my question. The point is that this time around, rural area is very badly affected. You bring them back, you'll have to vaccinate them. There are no vaccinations available. I mean, I think somewhere, let's just catch the bull by its horn and say, how will we bring back construction labor, even if you intend to? It's not going to be that easy, because they could infect other workers who are already there and have been kept safe.
Yes. No, so what we certainly will have to do is we'll have to bring them back. We'll have to keep them isolated for at least a 7-day period, like whenever we're traveling anywhere. Those protocols, fortunately, are pretty much now the norm, right? Bring them in, isolate them, keep them isolated, give them food, give them, space. And thereafter, when they, when you can even test them one more time and then let them come back onto the construction site. We're going to need to do this. It's, there's a cost to it. There are issues with it, but if you want to get through this is going to be the way to get it done.
What about what about supply disruptions and things like steel and cement? Those have not been as bad as last time.
No, so fortunately, the supply disruption isn't as bad, but it's not for all materials are not flowing smoothly, right? So therefore, and like we said earlier, right, there's multiple things which you need. So any one item that gets blocked slows down the entire process. So our sense and my expectation is, I think if you get 4.5 months, 4.5 months, 5 months, I think that's probably good.
Okay.
If you're in the early stage of a project, you would probably be able to catch up some amount of it if you have 24 months to go, barring no other waves, right? You could probably catch up some amount of it, but if you're closer towards the end of the project and there's not that much time to catch up, you'll probably need to consume 3, 4, 5 of that. So, I think something in that range would probably be a fair ask for this time around. And I honestly have no idea what our developer friends from CREDAI or from NAREDCO are actually pitching before each of the states. So, I don't know that.
That's all right. Okay, let's take Vikas Arora's question. And again, I know that we did attempt this answer at the start of the session, but it's a good one to always take this one. Is it a wait and watch market or buy it now market? Because Rohit, whatever said and done, if you look at all the economists and all the rating agencies, they have brought down India's economic growth numbers because of the second wave of the pandemic, which has been more vicious. So, this whole uncertainty about jobs, we may say that it's less than last time, but economy doesn't grow, we will have some worries on the job front as well. So what do you think?
Yes. So my thinking is, look, I think the most affected sectors are, hospitality, for example, retail, right? And if you look at the percentage of people from these sectors buying homes in the urban areas, it's much less as a percentage in there, right? The larger percentage are people who are working more in the IT space, more in, in other
FMCG,
sectors,
consumer durables, all of them seem to be doing all right. And
right?
internet. What about the Zomatos
And
and
the
the
internet.
big baskets?
Exactly. So yes, there is an impact to some segments, unfortunately, and they're really badly affected.
Yeah.
And therefore, employees there, people working in those segments. You look at restaurants, for example, that segment is decimated, right? But
Absolutely.
the fact of the matter is, people working in those segments are not buying homes in urban areas, right? They're staying more on rent and so on. So therefore, I don't think that, I think, yes, there will be an impact to GDP for these areas, but the segment that's buying homes are much less affected.
All right. So another very interesting question from Kumar Sahil says, had the government continued the reduction in stamp duty, do you think sales momentum would have continued? Or do you think that it would have anyway peaked as it did in March? What do you think?
I applaud the government for sticking to their decision of a two-step reduction. I think it was a brilliant idea to have two steps. And the fact that they discontinued it on the 31st of March gives them credibility and gives credibility for any future scheme which they come up with. And therefore, it'll have its efficacy. It'll have an impact. Otherwise, people are going to say, there's no rush here. So therefore,
extend होता ही रहता है.
extend होता ही रहता है. So there's no, अभी खरीदने की घाई नहीं है. कुछ जल्दी नहीं है. So therefore, I think that what the government did was smart. It was right. If they want to do another one for another 1 month, 2 months, I think people will flood in and they should end it again. Right?
Maybe they might at again around October to November, December.
I
This
think
government has been very proactive, so you might actually get to hear something.
Extremely, and I think that they saw the benefits of
Absolutely
applying the discount where the revenues actually went up.
always.
So therefore,
the reverse question is, Rohit, sorry. Reverse question is, then, so do you actually just advance all the revenues and the sales with the stamp duty cut, and after that the market goes into a lull? Does that happen? I mean, you wouldn't even experience it this time because we just hit a lockdown, right? So
that's right.
There's no way to say.
People were asking that before, right? But I think what it comes down to is this, Manisha. I think it's about the end of, you may end the incentive, but then if the next incentive is that you've gone into the price rise cycle, now you've got a natural incentive that if you don't buy today, the prices will rise in the next month, right? So it really comes down to where you are where the incentive cycle ends and where the price cycle is. Right? So if what we expect to happen will happen, that is because there is a crunch in supply and demand comes back and the government also sort of turbocharges the demand a little bit, then we'll certainly see a rise in prices, and now that becomes a reason enough for people to buy, and they don't need the discount from the government anymore, but the discount in today's price is discounted to tomorrow's price. That motivates people to buy. So this is what we've seen in the past.
Understood. I think there's another question. I know it's again for World of Joy. Can we, what is the update on the progress, and can we still expect on-time possession or a delay?
As of now, we are continuing to hold our timelines. It comes at with a significant cost in terms of at our end, to the contractors to actually go into additional shifts and accelerations and so on and so forth. But so far we are holding timelines. And this is predicated on the fact that, we expect that by 15 June, things should open up. If there is any sort of an impact, then we'll go back to our customers. But as of now, we're holding the timelines. And also, again, this is well within the RERA committed dates anyway. So we're nowhere near reaching our outside timelines in any case.
Fair enough. Ashish Chaturaj says, is it that the mid-ticket homes will not be as hit as budget ones? And what about luxury homes? So segment the market for us. Let's start with affordable homes. Will those get hit? Because probably the job losses in that segment have been the highest, and mid and luxury are actually better protected this time around, Rohit?
Let me take it from the other side, right? So luxury was kind of in a coma, literally, for about 4 or 5 years, right?
It woke up.
And it's woken up and it's really bounced back. Because I think, people have seen, okay, I want the larger home, I want the larger space. So that is sort of, and prices are at an all-time low, home loan rates are at an all-time low. So people are kind of, if you're looking at a luxury home, you probably already have one home and you want to do an upgrade. So, people they realize that this is the right time to do the upgrade. So we've seen the impact of that, right? As far as at the bottom end of the spectrum, on the affordable side, the demand in India at the what we call the bottom of the pyramid continues to be tremendous, right? So now if you're talking about buying homes at, let's say, 20 lakhs, for example, and anybody listening to this from Mumbai says, what kind of a what is your
where are those homes? Please tell
parking
us.
costs more than that. But in the smaller towns. In smaller towns, you can get a 600 square foot, one bedroom apartment, a 550 square foot, one bedroom apartment at a 20 lakh price point, right?
Right.
So I do believe that, yes, some of those will continue. So it depends where it is, right? Some people in that, so the biggest impact, I believe, is to the unorganized sector, right? And the unorganized sector largely isn't even eligible for mortgages. Right, because you're working as a waiter in a restaurant, right? He gets cash.
I mean, most of those people actually go back to their homes. They buy land or they extend a family home.
Exactly,
and you can see that in HDFC home loan book. I mean, their loans between that 20 to 35 lakhs is the bulk of the loans they give out. Those are not really going in the large cities, but those are actually going in tier 2, tier 3 cities for home extensions and land buying.
Exactly. So therefore, that segment goes there. Right. So in the cities, what you're talking about, again, people who have stable jobs, right? And when the economy is affected, please look at it this way, right? All World Bank and everybody else is doing is they are reducing our forecast of growth from, let's say, 20 to 18 or 20 to 15 or 20 or 15 to 12. But it's still a large growth.
On a lower base. That number is very deceptive. It's on a lower base.
I don't disagree, but please understand, our sales that we're talking about, right, are also on that same lower base. We're no longer comparing our sales numbers to 2018 and 19. And please understand, the real estate sector we have been stuck on the lowest base for the last 4 or 5 years anyway.
We did all right in 2019. The recovery was pretty okay.
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't
bad.
Let's
bad.
accept it. And the first January to March quarter has also been reasonably good for all the large developers and branded players. I mean, some of the branded players like Sobha have actually clocked a all-time high, historic high. Godrej said that. I'm sure your numbers also must be fairly strong.
My numbers are awful.
Oh,
you know why? Because we're stuck waiting for approvals on projects. I have 5,000 units waiting in the pipeline to get launched and approved, right? But we can't launch, we can't sell because we have nothing to sell.
Oh my God. We need to do another Ask Rohit Gera on that aspect of clearances and approvals. But let me take this question. Lawson Road says, do you think it's better to invest in residential property than a commercial unit? Oh my God. This question I've handled so many times and I'm saying, look, commercial, just stick with REIT. Why would you pick up a shop and then, don't know what's going to happen? But then I'm not the expert here, Rohit. Residential versus a commercial unit is his question.
So Manisha, let me take what you just said, the REIT versus your own commercial. The big difference is the REIT does not allow you to take a mortgage on your investment in the REIT. Whereas if you're buying a commercial, you can get a loan for that. So there's a substantial difference there. The return on commercial is, if you get 6% and you're paying 8-9%, right? It's certainly a good option. It's a good alternative. But what ends up happening here is most people then end up with an office which is maybe 800 square feet, 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet. Renting those to a small player then becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Especially
in this environment when it's the smaller establishments which are disappearing the fastest, and then you'll continue to pay the maintenance charges of the building where you hold a unit. So it's not that simple. I mean, you may be getting mortgage, but otherwise, I would say if you have to invest in a good market where there's a lot of employment generation and buy a residential unit that you can afford.
But Manisha, look at it this way, right? If the yield on residential is 2.5, and the yield on commercial is 6.5, or 7 even, right?
Yeah.
The spread on the mortgage is 100 basis points.
Right.
The return on commercial is much higher. Now, whenever the returns are higher, it comes with a little bit of higher risk. So it really comes down to the appetite of risk for the investor. If you already have your home, if you already have some other investments, you want a slightly riskier with higher return possibility, a commercial property isn't a bad option. So I wouldn't take a blanket answer for everybody looking at investing in real estate.
So Rohit, my experience is from North India, where more people have got stuck buying these commercial units from developers than they have probably in any other part of the country.
But in North India, I'm sorry to say, the number of people who are crying about not receiving their homes
is equally high.
what should I say to that?
All right, let's talk something positive. There's one
Sure.
message which I said, just wanted to say thank you and kudos to your entire team for Imperium Alpha, superb building quality and delivered on time.
Thank you very much
All
for
right,
that.
so and then of course I'm going to take this as a last question because we have already exceeded time, but we did lose some time in the middle because of the loss, and after that we will conclude. This is from Nickelodeon 7. With a lot of IT crowd back in their hometown, will the rental market be affected for homes near the IT companies? Example, World of Joy, which is close to Eon IT Park. Which,
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably what he means is that can I expect better rental yield, or do I have to pay higher rents?
No, so I think if somebody is if you're an investor, right? Look, I think firstly there's a misnomer around work from home, that people have gone back to their hometowns and they will be there forever. I talk to a lot of business owners, talk to a lot of friends in the IT space. They don't mind giving people now a day or two or some degree of flexibility, right? But you need to be in the vicinity where if you need to come in, you need to come in. So I don't think that there's going to be a big exodus to tier 2, tier 3 towns, as was talked about at some time. The second thing for the specific question around World of Joy is not to just have Eon around us. Our own IT XCZ and IT Park is coming up, which has about 5 or 6 million feet ourselves, right? Already part of it is occupied. So, I think about 1.5 million feet is already done and ready, occupied. So the number of jobs being created in that micro market continues to rise. And as a result, we believe that the demand for homes in that vicinity, even for rental, will continue to rise. So I don't see a big problem with that.
Okay, last question, because we are very close to World Environment Day. This is a very different question on renewable energy. So Akash, allow me to take this one. Any renewable energy solutions being used at WO project which makes society self-sufficient?
So what we've started doing as a first step is, a large part of the construction power that we use is all through solar, right? So we already have the solar panels, which is put out onto the site. And then we feed it into the grid and we draw it as we need. So, that we've already started doing that for the construction cycle.
Okay.
Right? And we are actually assessing it for our projects to then say, okay, how many solar panels can we put onto the rooftop? And then can we provide that power for the homes? Now, the big problem with the viability is that it's very viable for commercial costs. Right? And solar power to put in all those panels on top right now still isn't viable for the residential rates. Right? But certainly for commercial, there is a viability, and it is something that we're looking at. We've already embarked upon it with use of solar power for the construction of the projects. We'll see how that works out and then possibly expand it onto our onto the commercial projects for sure, and eventually onto residential.
So it's a larger conversation on why, when everyone is saying that solar is now cheaper per unit than thermal, is it not viable for residential? But you've given me some food for thought for the 5th June show that I'm going to do on NDTV on the World Environment Day on green buildings. But Rohit, thank you very much. I think we covered a lot of ground today. And over to you, Akash.
Thank you, Manisha.
Very much for an insightful session. And apart from the technical glitch that happened for a couple of minutes in between, the session went really well. We have a lot of questions which have come in through the live feed, which we'll be sharing with our experts, Mr. Rohit Gera and Ms. Manisha Natarajan. for answering it after this session, which we'll be posting on our news feed of social media platforms. So thank you very much, the both of you. Both we are experts, and stay and wishing, hoping everyone that you stay safe and take care, and we'll be very soon back with the next edition of Ask Rohit Gera. Until then, signing off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.